Howdy, howdy, listeners. This is your host, Random Nerd, on the Critical Thinking Nerd podcast. This episode will ask a simple question. Is your worth as a human being defined by monetary value or as an individual thinker? Let's begin. Before we had experts, we had philosophers. Before that, we had bards. People whose job wasn't to monetize your attention, but to guard your soul, to test your courage, to ask, what kind of human are you becoming? Today, we live in a world where almost everything can be bought and sold, and market values have come to govern our lives as never before. In that world, what happens to philosophy, to real thinking, to the quiet, stubborn work of becoming wise? Segment 1. From bards to brand experts. Once upon a time, expertise meant something more than a LinkedIn bio and a webinar funnel. It meant a way of life. The bard, the sage, the philosopher were not selling solutions. They were embodying questions. How to live, what to value, what we owe to one another. Today, the word expert often means someone who can optimize a metric, not someone who can illuminate your soul. We replaced wisdom with specialization, depth with credentials, and character with branding. The expert's job is no longer to challenge the tribe, but to keep the machine running smoothly. Segment 2. How we were conditioned away from thought. There is a reason it feels so hard to sit alone with a book or with your own thoughts. We've been trained not to. In a culture where market logic, quote, increasingly governs the whole of life, unquote, we are taught to see time, attention, even relationships as investments that must pay off. School becomes a factory for employability. Spirituality becomes content. Education becomes a subscription. Public life, meanwhile, has been drained of moral and civic energy as we avoid talking about the good life and instead let technical, managerial language dominate. We measure everything, but we rarely ask if what we're measuring is worth doing in the first place. Segment 3. The commodification of living. When life is treated as a marketplace, thinking itself becomes a product. From birth to death, nearly every aspect of existence, education, healthcare, housing, leisure, and even death, is now commodified, equating personal worth with material accumulation. Under this logic, philosophy looks unproductive. Contemplation looks like waste, and stillness looks like laziness. We end up outsourcing judgment to algorithms, outsourcing courage to influencers, outsourcing responsibility to experts, whose main qualification is that they fit neatly into the supply chain of attention. Segment 4. What happens when philosophy is priced out? So what happens when philosophy is pushed to the margins? Without moral argument in our public square, market reasoning fills the vacuum. Because it does not pass judgment on the preferences it satisfies, it only asks, how much? If someone is willing to sell their body, their beliefs, or their integrity, the only question is the price, not whether it's good, just, or human. The result is a hollowing out of humanity. We know how to monetize feelings, but not how to understand them. How to hack habits, but not how to discern virtues. Segment 5, the emotional turn, a callback to thinkers. But here's the turn. Beneath the noise, many of us feel it, the ache, the quiet sense that we were meant for more than optimization. You feel it when you scroll through a feed and realize your attention has become someone else's asset. You feel it when your worth is measured in productivity and profit, not courage and character. You feel it when you wake up in the middle of the night and ask yourself, is this all life is? A series of transactions? That ache is not a bug. It is your philosophical immune system trying to fight off the commodification of your soul. Segment 6, reclaiming the right to think. To reclaim philosophy is not to retreat into ivory towers. It is to insist that ordinary people have the right and the duty to think deeply about how we live. That means bringing moral and spiritual argument back into public life instead of leaving it to technocratic managers and market algorithms. It means refusing to treat every belief, every relationship, every value as an investment that must pay off, and instead seeing them as commitments that shape who we are becoming. Philosophy is not a luxury. It is the operating system of a free society. Without it, freedom becomes just another brand word on a billboard. Segment 7, practical ways to live as a thinker. So what does it look like in a commodified age to be a thinker again? Choosing moments of silence over constant stimulation so your mind can hear itself. Reading not just to collect information, but to engage with authors as if they were living partners in a long conversation. Asking of every quote-unquote expert, not just are they right, but what kind of human being does their advice ask me to become? These are small acts of resistance, like artists who create for community rather than market, or educators who refuse to turn students into mere products. They don't change the whole system overnight, but they keep your soul from being fully absorbed into it. Segment 8, closing appeal, from consumers to guardians. If markets now reach into almost every corner of life, then the question is not whether we will participate in commodification. It's whether we will let it define us. We can continue to live as consumers of expertise, constantly searching for the next hack, the next framework, the next secret to success. Or we can step back into the lineage of bards and philosophers, people who guarded the meaning of words, the direction of culture, the dignity of human life. My invitation to you is simple and hard. Become a thinker again, not because it will increase your brand, but because it will restore your humanity. Read, reflect, argue about the good life. Refuse to reduce your soul to a product in someone else's marketplace. In a society baked in commodification of living, the most radical act is to ask, honestly and publicly, what is a life for? And then, with others, to live as if the answer is more important than the price for truth, transparency, and fairness. If you found this episode meaningful, please continue to listen to my next episode as I dive deeper and research further to share my knowledge with you. Thank you.